You are listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast with Buck Joffrey. Get ready to change your life.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, of course, is our Wednesday show, and that means we have Zulfi from Valerity Wealth. Zulfi, how are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. How are you doing, Buck?
I'm doing good, and I am here to tell you that I was right and you were wrong.
I figured that was coming. I was wrong. I usually lose most of my bets, whether it's sports or...
That's not what you want to say when you're a wealth in the wealth advisory space.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I would say don't bet. Do not bet. I would say be very thoughtful and strategic about your investments. Don't make bets. I was wrong. I'll admit it. I was very wrong. I thought Harris would pull off a very close election, but it turns out Trump won a very convincing and across the board.
And the popular vote. And the popular vote.
I would say, listen, on a state-by-state basis, the results in the battleground states, they were all relatively close. I mean, it wasn't like Trump, took way more percentage points than expected. It was all kind of within the margin of error. So most of the polling data, they say, is kind of plus or minus 3% margin of error.
They missed on some pretty big ones. I mean, Iowa. I think I think New Jersey was off by somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or 13%. I mean, even though Harris won it, that's insane. California was off by double digits.
Yeah, but in the battleground states, the ones where they were really focused on, those were all really close. And
sure,
I think the landslide there was just the consistency that Trump won across the board, right? I mean, he took them all. It wasn't even like one of them that came towards Harris. So to me, that was the bigger landslide, so to speak, is just all the dominoes went one way.
And Harris didn't outperform Biden in a single county in the entire country.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy. Yeah, but I mean, I had a feeling it was gonna, it was going to be a little bit of a landslide, but not a landslide, but I thought it was going to be a pretty convincing win.
Yeah.
But this was even kind of surprising me, and how early it was pretty clear that was the case. As you recall, I sent you a text showing you the cryptocurrency market all in green, aggressively going up. And I told you right then and there, I was like, it's over. It's over because the crypto markets have spoken. And there was no doubt in the crypto market's mind that Trump was going to win. It was
early. Wasn't that like at 9 o'clock or something like that?
It was like 9 o'clock Eastern or something.
Eastern, and and you recall that I very quickly changed my mind on your.
I think you missed the deadline.
Yeah, I changed my mind. I agree with you. He's going to win. Yeah. Anyway, so that was a lot of excitement, much anticipated. What I think is interesting is, to kind of think through what does it mean, right? What is this Trump trade that everyone's talking about? What is the Trump effect, which has been kind of dominating the financial market? Really, what are the key implications of not only just a Trump presidency, but Republicans having majorities in the Senate and the House, right? And I think that's I think an interesting thing to kind of think through. We know the broad strokes, so less regulation, right? So definitely there were big M&A deals that were stopped by the current FTC chair, Lina Khan. She's likely to get yanked out of her position, although it's interesting that Vance is a big supporter.
Likely. Yeah, what did Lina Khan, didn't she tell Elon Musk to F off and leave the state on Twitter?
I don't think I caught that, but I'm not on Twitter, so maybe that's why I missed it. But I missed that one. But yeah, she's probably going to get the hike. But like I said, Vance has been a big supporter. He's liked the fact that she's very focused on anti-competitive M&A that might cause, consumers to pay the price at the end of the day. But I think the broader policies from Trump and folks on his side will be, nah, she's got to go.
Yeah.
The other one that's obvious to me is Gary Gensler.
Yeah. I
the
can't
SEC.
wait. I cannot wait till Gary Gensler is shown the door.
Yeah. So there, he's obviously going to be replaced by someone who commits to a much more crypto-friendly,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we laugh about it, but this is a big, big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary Gensler has been like sort of the anti-crypto head of the SEC, and like there's other members of the SEC who are actually very open to crypto. This guy has been after crypto, and the Harris administration has generally been anti-crypto. This administration, not only are they going to change that, but I mean, as a reminder, we talked about Trump and RFK both, as part of what they discussed what they would do if they were elected. Said they were going to, either, retain Bitcoin. Trump said he was going to retain Bitcoin that was in the treasury from, like sometimes when it gets taken away from bad guys.
Yep.
Normally they just auction that off. They're going to keep it. Or, as RFK has actually talked about, buying enormous amounts of cryptocurrency for the treasury. Whatever the case may be, it's a very pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin space now. And we can talk about it in a little bit, but the numbers are off the charts, right? So they're going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So less regulations, removing those individuals that were heading these agencies that were imposing a lot of regulations. You could probably see that spilling into the oil and gas, allowing more drilling on federal lands and things like that. So I think broad stroke number one, less regulations. Broad stroke number two, I think, taxes, right? So a likely extension of the 2017 Trump tax policies, if not additional cuts. On the campaign trail, Trump was very, kind of proactive in talking about cutting taxes for Social Security payments, taxes on tips, taxes on overtime pay. Definitely a big, corporate tax reduction again, particularly for those manufacturers that manufacture in the U.S., a very strong incentive for those. So all of that, very much, kind of boosting, so to speak, the fiscal policy, so to speak.
Very relevant to this group. And to me, this is incredibly good news for real estate.
Yeah.
And from the standpoint of, you just mentioned the taxes. Well, we had some legislation that we thought we was going to go through in the last year that was going to extend 100% bonus depreciation, and it didn't get through. You better believe that's going through now, because there's that's going to be a big push from the real estate, including Trump himself. I mean, we're going to see that, and I would not be surprised if the 60% bonus depreciation that we have for this year isn't changed to 100% after the fact. They were talking about doing that for 23 already.
Yeah.
So
they were. They were, and actually it actually wasn't being objected to by the Democrats at that time either. They weren't talking about blocking it either. But it just there was just never a tax bill that came on for passing through, so they never got to it. But it could be
Well,
something.
you better believe that's going to happen with the Trump administration. It's going to be a big, that'll be part of one of the.
I think if there's anything that gets passed, it's going to be more friendly real estate investing environment for the real estate mogul himself. So that for sure. I do wonder how the Republican Party is going to control its House members, right? So we know that there was a lot of splintering that happened, over the last couple of years, where they really couldn't land on, the same page on a variety of things. You've got some serious deficit hawks there as well in the House, and so obviously there'll have to be some some trading with them. But maybe having, Trump in the White House just saying, hey, this is going to be enough to get them in line. I don't know. I'd be really curious to see how that plays out.
I think they'll succumb to fear. I think that's what they'll do. I mean, he gets stuff done, and it's whatever you say about the tactic, it's a tactic of intimidation that generally seems to work for him. So, and in this situation, I'm kind of rooting him on.
Yeah, so you've got less regulations, less taxes, but then more tariffs. So that's the other kind of big picture policy direction there. And I think it's a bit of a wild card, right? Because he's stated that he wants to be aggressive with across the board tariffs and that sort of thing. That ultimately would feed into inflation. So if you have a wide variety of imports that are being taxed, even if you have products being manufactured in the U.S., well, the material is being imported from elsewhere, so it's gonna flow through. But if he's more precise and he keeps tariffs focused on limited countries and products, then I think it's potentially not as concerning. And again, it's up to him for a large degree, because presidents do have wide control on imposing tariffs. So unlike some of the other things we're talking about, passing a broad tax policy or whatever, he doesn't have to go to Congress for this. He can do a lot of that on his own. So that'll be something he probably does sooner versus later.
I personally think he weaponizes tariffs, right? So he uses them as a weapon to try to make things happen.
It's a negotiation strategy, potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think he comes in and just throws a bunch of tariffs around. And he's going to surround himself with some smart economic people. There's no doubt about it. I think, hasn't there been some rumors about some of the people who are going to be in the Treasury and all that? Just like John Paulson?
Yeah. He's Paulson is one of the favorites to be rumored right now as head of Treasury. So he could be.
And just so people know who's that.
Well, he's famous for making himself billions of dollars in the the collapse of the housing bubble. He invested heavily in the what do you call those? He bet against the housing markets, basically, in some of those structures.
So he's a smart guy.
He's a smart guy, former
Golden guy, right?
Former Golden guy. Has run his own investment firm for a decade plus. So he's definitely someone who would have a very, I think, market-centric, growth-centric perspective that he could pass on to Trump. And listen, I think Trump himself, watches the stock markets and watches what's going on and the reactions. And I think, I think that is also a tempering factor in terms of, announcing things, testing them out. If the market doesn't like it, then don't implement it, right? And just move on. So anyway, so let's see how that works. And I think the last kind of broad brush strokes, as I can think of it, it's just on immigration / deportation, right? It's what are his policies on those fronts? I mean, I think of those as kind of two separate items. I think there's been a lot of conflagration in terms of thinking of immigration as deportation. Well, we need immigration in this country. We need talent. We need, we need workforce to come into this country that has a lot of technical know-how. So all the people that Silicon Valley needs, and then you need workers as well for things like the agriculture.
To that point, by the way, he's definitely not that kind of anti-immigration. I've heard him on various podcasts, like, for example, the All In podcast I mentioned to you. I think it's an interesting one with a bunch of these, Silicon Valley venture capitalists, do you know that one? Do you know a bunch of guys who made a ton of money, smart guys about that. But they when they had him on, it was a really interesting podcast. And, they asked him specifically about that question about immigration, how they need it, right? They need it to have these really smart people coming from, maybe it's India or other places. They come here and they do great work, and they start companies, unicorn companies, and then the next thing you know, they have to leave. And that doesn't help the U.S. And it doesn't help American companies when these kinds of brains cannot stay in the country. And so he gets that. I think, what his immigration thing is very much, I think, illegal immigration, which, it's hard to really argue that there isn't a need for, stronger borders and all that, regardless of what party you're in and all that. So.
No, 100%. I think, on the deportation front, I think, that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think it'll be more challenging than just, waving a wand. There isn't really an infrastructure in place for the federal government to collect all these individuals and deport them. They're spread across the country. You're going to have states that don't necessarily cooperate with it and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think the important thing for me is to make sure that, the immigration policy helps support and continue to support the growth of all these amazing companies in our country. So, anyway, you have all of these different policies and things that are looking like they're going to boost our economic growth. There's some that have potential to re-spark inflation potentially. It's already kind of, being stickier than hoped as we sit today, but could a big deportation, plan and tariffs, re-spark more inflation. Yeah, there's always potential for that. So, the challenge for the Fed now is how do you navigate? How do you navigate what are these fiscal stimulus, economic growth, inflationary policies that are being talked about but not implemented. So you have no idea what they're going to look like or how they're going to come into play. But everyone's talking about them. And so I think the Fed for now is just saying, okay, we're not going to anticipate any of that. We're going to go off the data that we have and the economy.
And they made the cut. They made the 25 basis cut.
That's right. They made the 25 basis cut on November 7th. Everyone's widely expecting on December 18th. That's the next FOMC meeting that they'll make another 25 basis cut there. And then we get into 2025, and I think that'll be more interesting to see how things play out as policies get rolled out, as some of the economic data might start to reflect some of the impacts of that. The first meeting in 2025 is at the end of January. So I would suspect there's probably not a whole lot that would happen between now and then. So, probably safe on another one there, but beyond that, it's hard to say what happens. I think the interesting thing will be to watch some of the fireworks if they flare up between Trump and Powell, because Powell's another one on his hit list, I think. And so,
well,
I don't know if you,
tell us about that. Why would Powell be on the? Obviously, in some regards, I would say that Powell did some big favors to Trump because, the Fed raised rates insanely over the last couple of years. And obviously we needed it with inflation and all, but how does, what do you think the problem is there?
I think that there's been statements made by Trump that he's not happy with Powell and that he wants to have a lot more say in the process. And I don't think Powell is going to necessarily allow himself to get influence there, from anyone, whether it's Trump or Biden or whatever.
Do you know when his when does Powell when does his?
That's a good question. I think he's got through mid 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he's got a bit more time on there. So, they did ask him during that last FOMC meeting if he would resign if Trump had asked him to resign, and he said no. And he also said that Trump does not have the authority to remove him. So I think the gauntlet has been thrown. See if there's a reaction from the other side. But
as long as he continues to cut rates, I wouldn't think that Trump would necessarily have an issue. Looks like May 26th is when his regime is
Yeah.
over.
Okay. Yeah.
So as long as he continues to cut for a period of time,
Yeah.
I don't, who knows? Maybe that'll.
We'll see.
That, yeah,
It could
yeah.
be some entertainment in the background.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of entertainment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm really curious about though is, and I have to tell you, I'm kind of like excited maybe just to see it again. It's sort of like, watching reality TV, which is not far from
Yeah. Yeah.
Trump's done reality TV too, right? Like, but
Yep.
but looking at what Elon does, and Elon's gotten super involved, this with the Trump administration, stuff like that. And I've listened to Elon Musk on a number of podcasts as well. I mean, the thing is, Elon's a smart guy. He really is. Like him or hate him, he's a smart guy. And he's talking a lot about really cutting down government bureaucracy. That's something he's really good at that. He's good at is, cutting down costs and cutting time and all that. So I'm wondering how much he's actually involved. I mean, that could be,
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of like, on the one hand, it's kind of exciting to think about, like, just a complete game change in terms of how the administration approaches government, right? It'd be great to see some major positive changes going on there, including making it much more efficient. On the other hand, I'm also nervous about, certain ways that could be done that may not be helpful and be very disruptive for the broader economy. I mean, when I think of Elon, so think about how he's been successful in his rocket business, right? What he does is he sends them up and he lets them crash, and he learns everything about what went wrong. And eventually he gets to a point where he's solved all the problems, and the rocket ship not only goes up, but comes down for a perfect landing. Well, with the economy, you can't have it just crash multiple times to try to figure out.
I don't think Elon's going to be. I don't think Elon's going to be directly involved with the economic stuff as much as I think what he's been talking about. What his role may be is to work on bureaucracy.
Yeah,
and cutting bureaucracy. Which, I mean, he's kind of famous for this, right? What's that one guy? NVIDIA's CEO.
And Jensen.
Yeah. He was talking about how Elon was doing things that in like 2 weeks that would have taken, most companies 2 or 3 years to do.
Yeah. Like setting up an enormous data center that they did. Yeah, I saw that as well. I mean, listen, I think there is obviously a lot of merit in having someone that's got a first principles approach, which is don't just assume what is being done is the right way to do it. You start from scratch and you say, how would I solve this? How would I do this if I'm starting from a scratch piece of paper, blank piece of paper? And I think that makes sense to me. I'm concerned that the culture in government is not necessarily conducive to that kind of disruption. It could have impacts in terms of how certain government services are met to people that need them and things like that. But again, these are smart people.
Hopefully it changes. I mean, it seems like there needs to be a shakeup. And one of the things that I think I like about at least, guys like Elon being involved in there is, and if Paulson ends up in there too, you're talking about getting a bunch of entrepreneurs involved, right? And I mean, I generally think getting entrepreneurs, independent thinkers to be involved with something that's not going well is a good idea. I mean, the rest of the, this government is a bunch of professional politicians, and they no clue.
Well, the biggest thing is that there's no incentive for people in government to, other than just their own principles, right, to do the right thing. There's no financial reward if, government worker does a fantastic job versus someone who's doing a, crappy job. They both get the same pay, and they both go home at the same time, and they, all that kind of. So I think there's some models out there. I mean, the Singapore government is just an amazing example of a government that is just solid, works like a company, because some of the highest paid individuals in the country are government officials that are held accountable. They've got the KPIs they've got to deliver on year after year after year, and if they don't deliver, they're out. And so they run it like a business. And some of that type of culture would make a lot of sense, I think, for us to think about where it could be applied, how it could be applied, and that sort of things.
So let's switch to the markets here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's just been a huge rally in risk assets. So, the equity markets, since we spoke on election day, S&P is up about 5%, NASDAQ's up 6% plus. You've got Bitcoin that was trading at 70K, is now 89K.
It cracked 90.
Yeah,
I think it was
intraday, yeah.
It's like
I
up
think
to
it's settled back down.
93, I think. 93.
Yeah. So you're seeing anything that has, a play on growth, so the equity markets, or a play on deregulation, such as, the crypto stuff. I mean, look at Coinbase, for example. That was trading at $189 a share when you and I were talking last week. It's at $319. So, you're talking about a huge
That's like crypto numbers.
Yeah, because really, I mean, if you think about Coinbase, it's a pure play on a broad cryptocurrency market, right? And it's not just Bitcoin, it's all the cryptocurrencies that are traded on that platform. And even the legal case against Coinbase itself, right, is likely to be dropped by someone who replaces Gensler. So, so, I mean, you can see very directly all of the assets that you think should be rallying are rallying hard.
The safety stuff starts going down, right? And that's what you saw in gold.
That's right. 5% down since we were talking on election day before the results were there. So, people that were kind of jumping in, maybe they were a bit nervous about, how is this election going to go? Is there going to be a non-peaceful ending to the day, or all that kind of stuff. Well, all of a sudden, that risk is gone. The growth story is back in, and people are likely selling down a bit of their gold and redeploying it in some of these growth assets. And then the treasury markets, you're seeing a bit more rise in the yields. Why? Well, again, because there is more growth there's potential for more growth than we were anticipating. And so if you've got more growth, you got the potential for more inflation. You got more potential for inflation, then the rate environment is potentially not going to be as conducive as we thought it was. So long term, the 10-year was at 4.3 last week. Now it's at 4.5. 5 years at 4.2% yield. Now it's at 4.3. So, that's to be expected. Nothing calamitous, but you can see where kind of all the markets have kind of priced in much more likelihood of growth and better growth than we were anticipating, just over a week ago.
I have a few comments here, and I don't want anybody to interpret them as financial advice, but just some observations. One is, if you're looking at the cryptocurrency markets, you may recall, Zulfi, several weeks ago, one of the cryptocurrency that I mentioned that I really felt like I wanted to get more exposure to, and that people should really be looking at, is Solana. And Solana, when I mentioned that a few weeks ago, was at about 130. It went over like 220 yesterday. Right. And I think I still think Solana has potential in a bull market to 10x from here.
What is the purpose of Solana?
I'll tell you what. So Solana is a really, really fast version of Ethereum. It's basically it's its own, it's its own ledger. So it's not, it's not part of it. It's not built on Ethereum. It's Solana is Solana. And what the reason I am so bullish on Solana right now is because meme coins. Okay. So you know what meme coins are?
Like Dogecoin, like stuff
Yeah.
that's kind of the goofy
Yeah.
stuff that people just trade for fun.
All the goofy stuff
Yeah.
is, I think a lot of people are talking about how this 2025 bull run is going to be a massive memcoin run up, right?
Mm.
You even have like Andreessen Horowitz involved with a coin called Dog with Hat. Yeah, not even kidding. And they bought a big ad to put on the crypto on the Vegas, like what's that new arena they have, the fancy one. Anyway,
Yeah.
the idea is that these meme coins, especially in Asia, young people in Asia and stuff like it's a real thing, right? They the idea behind it is basically community, and it's also this like that's where these things get driven up, right?
Right.
And it sort of doesn't matter in a way that those coins don't have any real purpose.
Right.
I mean, Dogecoin has no purpose, right? But people made a lot of money on Dogecoin, and I think the prevailing belief amongst a lot of crypto enthusiasts is that 2025 is going to be the year of the meme coin. So how does this all come back to Solana? Well, all of those meme coins are built on Solana. So because Solana is very fast, it's efficient, it's cheap, and so they use Solana as the backbone for the meme coins.
Mm-hmm.
And so Solana I think it's gonna benefit a lot from them. I mean, Solana has a lot of use cases in general because it's it's basically a faster Ethereum.
Gotcha.
And I really believe it's gonna skyrocket still. I mean, in a bull market. So I don't want people to take this as advice, but I did buy more Solana yesterday because I should have bought it when I told everybody else to buy it, but I didn't. But I just see this being a big thing. The other thing I just want to emphasize is that when you look at the markets right now, the one thing that is not exploded yet is multifamily real estate. Right. And there's all the other markets are exploding right now. Multifamily real estate has not, and it will. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. If you look at it from the horizon of now compared to say 3 years from now, we're gonna be in a different place, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't have froth. The reason I bring that up is because, again, I think people they're sleeping on this. I mean, right now they're getting excited about cryptocurrency, which they should. I think there's still opportunity there, like I just mentioned, but they are because it's blazing hot. That's not the perfect time to get in. The perfect time to get in was when it was cold. Right? When no one was talking about crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, multifamily real estate is going to be hot. It has to. There's no way it's not going to be in the next few years become a very, very frothy market again. And I just want to remind people it's sitting there. And I think, trying to think about this rationally is really important. Again, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, it's all really hot right now. That's where everybody's attentions are. But when you want to direct your attention is where things are on sale. And again, there's no more sales that I can think of outside of real estate. So that's my 2 cents.
Good points.
Okay, well, good talking to you, and we will catch up again next week.
Sounds great, Buck. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast. Visit us on the web at wealthformula.com. The information contained in this podcast are opinions, not fact. As always, consult your own financial team before making any investment. See you next time.